Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Dr. Sarah Bryan is a therapist specialising in freeing clients from long-term pain. As someone who's been blind since birth, she also helps people who've experienced sight loss. When it comes to networking, she's found it a really useful way to get to know people in a new area and to prevent loneliness. Thank you very much for being my podcast guest today, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Liz. It's great.
Now, before we talk about your business, I'd just like to delve a little bit into your background. So you've got a PhD, and I understand that you're one of only a handful of blind people in the UK to have achieved this. So what's your PhD in, and why did you want to do it?
Goodness only knows would be the answer to both. My PhD was in human communication science, which to your layperson, it's speech and language therapy and related disciplines. So bit of linguistics, bit of psychology, bit of anatomy, bit of research method, all that sort of thing. And yeah, it's about speech and language therapy and communication and what goes wrong with communication. And you could write a PhD just on that, really. But so that was my PhD. Why did I want to do one? With hindsight, I thought I wanted to pursue a career in academia. As it turned out, that actually was not what I wanted to do at all. I trained as a speech therapist for 2 years, and things started to go wrong because I've got total sight loss, and when kids aren't talking because they know you want to listen to them talking, they'll do the opposite and they'll go and do a load of visual stuff, and I can't work out what's going on. And the way that you interact with children in clinic is very sort of toy and game based. And again, if little Johnny was rocking back on his chair or throwing his marbles on the floor, I could not control the situation or indeed deal with it. So anyway, I went down an academic route thinking I could work alongside speech therapists, but it just took me away from human interaction altogether, really. So that was why I did one. It was not my best idea, but I don't regret it. I don't regret it either.
I have to say, you sound quite similar to me in that I did a PhD and I thought that academia was where I wanted to be. And by the time I'd finished it, I knew that I really didn't. As you say, it's never a waste, is it? No. Because there are things that you learn doing a PhD that you draw on again later in your life.
Oh, it's very useful because in my current industry, there are very few of us with PhDs, and there's more emphasis in health and well-being on research. So I'm one of the people that can actually come on board, read a paper, work out whether the study design is any good, that kind of thing, which a lot of healthcare professionals just don't have that background in.
Yeah. So once you'd done that qualification, what did you go on to do next? Have you always worked for yourself since then?
Yeah, so actually it was while I was doing my PhD, I was so miserable doing my PhD that I decided I needed an antidote. So I went and trained as a therapist alongside my PhD work. So it was mental because I wanted to come out in 2012 with my initial therapy qualifications plus just to get the PhD done. I felt morally obliged to complete my PhD because, well, I had a stipend for it, but the university had also invested in me in terms of tuition fees, so that I would have quit, quite honestly, I would have done, but there did feel like there was a moral obligation to the university for basically keeping me for 3 years.
So tell me about what you do now then. I know you work with two different groups of clients, people who experience pain and people who've experienced sight loss. So how did that all come about? And let's talk first about the freedom from pain work that you do.
Thank you. Yes, so I trained as a therapist, and I guess over the years I've developed many more skills, got many more qualifications, and it's the kind of person I gravitate to. So a midlife woman who is struggling to find effective treatment for unresolved physical pain. So this is not, I broke my ankle last week. This has been going on for at least 3 months and possibly for years or decades. And now I help them become pain-free for good so that they feel younger and rediscover the fun in life.
That sounds amazing. So what kind of pain do you have people presenting with? Is it things like backache, for example?
Backache, yeah, of course, is the common one. It matters not where in the body it is so much, but sort of how it's impacting on their life. So if you think about backache, on the face of it, it's just backache. But if that's then stopping the person being able to lie comfortably in bed and therefore sleep, and then mean that they're being grumpy with their children and their spouse because they're tired, and then they can't work, the effect of that back pain is far reaching, and they can't play golf anymore, which is the one thing they used to love, and so on and so forth. Life can just spiral downwards very, very quickly. So I work with that, and it doesn't have to be back pain. It could be something like fibromyalgia, where basically the immune system's kicking off big time. Or someone who's had surgery for something that saved their lives, but they're still in a lot of pain from scars. And I work a lot with migraines and jaw tension as well. So, I mean, all sorts of pain. But really, because it has so many impacts, it needs several different strings to get them out of pain. So it's not just about putting your hands on their body and sorting it out, but what are they eating? What's going on in their mind? Because I very seldom see anyone with pain who hasn't had some trauma. And I'll say, oh, what's been going on in your personal life, if you don't mind me asking? And they'll say, oh, funny, you should mention that all this kicked off when my grandma died. Okay. So unraveling all that side of things too. So multifaceted is pain, and so it needs a multifaceted approach to get you out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what would happen for these people if they just went to see their GP and said, look, I've got backache? What's likely to happen through the NHS?
People listening to this right now might go, GP, question mark. At the moment, you hear so many stories of people completely unable to get an appointment with their GP, or if they can, it's for weeks. But if they are fortunate enough to see their GP, then typically, well, the GP will rule out anything that's life-threatening or anything that's easily treatable with medication. And long-term pain tends to not fall into either of those categories. So in that case, they might be referred for physio. They might have had to wait 3 months, but now it could easily be longer. And when they do see a physio, that physio only has X number of sessions to work with them. They will give them a predetermined sheet of exercises. There may not be any physical examination really. And then they'll be told, go away and do your exercises and we'll see you again in a few weeks. If that hasn't worked, then they might well be referred on for procedures like injections, nerve blockers, steroid injections for shoulders and elbows, that kind of thing, which may or may not work and have risks associated with them. And then also they may be offered surgery, which again, a lot of doctors actually don't want to operate, but their hands are tied. The NHS are great, but their hands are tied by the system as to what they can actually offer. So they may be offered surgery because that's the protocol, rather than because that's actually what they need.
So tell me about what you do for your clients.
Okay, so we work with natural, we work with the body, we work with natural methods really. So it's a combination of multiple modalities and multiple experts in the team who all talk to each other. So we're a multidisciplinary team. We all discuss the individual client. I will put the team together for the client. So these are your challenges. This is the solution that's needed to move you forward, and this is how we're going to do it. And then I will project manage that team. So I will do a lot of the hands-on work, the body work, and then other members of the team will work on mindset, exercise, nutrition, trauma, any of those things that might be sleep perhaps, that might be contributing to the pain. And if we need somebody new, we get someone new on board. So we're evolving with the client's need. The client's need is our demand, really. Our command.
So it's really a holistic approach, isn't it?
It is, although the word holistic is so bandied about and wrongly used these days. You might go to a spa and be offered a holistic facial by someone who you will never see again. And I'm sure it's a very nice treatment. But how can a 1 hour treatment in a sense be holistic? Because I think what's holistic is actually moving forward with that person,
Mm.
journeying with them, finding out what does work, and there will be bumps in the road. So if you work together for a period of time, you overcome those bumps and then get real progress, but you do have to find your way around the bumps to get that
Mm.
progress. Does that make sense?
Mm. So tell me about some of the successes you've had and the difference that's been made to people's lives.
Okay, so Jane, who I've actually recently just sort of finished working with in the best possible way, she came to me with a calcified tendon in her shoulder. So
Mm.
actually, sort of bony deposits had started to form in that shoulder, and she was waiting for injections and things like that. And we worked together, her and her team. And not only did we work on what's going on in her shoulder, but we also worked on some of her boundaries. She was putting other people in her life and in her family before herself in a way that ultimately wasn't serving her
Mm.
or them, perhaps. So unpicking and unpacking that, and working with the exercise specialist because she wanted to go back to the gym. So for me, it was about educating her to do the right things in the right order. And I said, yes, you will go back to the gym. It's not that you can't ever do these things again. It's just that you can't do them right now because
Mm.
something else has to happen first. So you've got to walk before you can run. And so that was her. And now she has very little pain, the occasional niggle. She knows what to do when she gets one. And she's now a lot better in her boundaries, got more energy at work, she's sleeping better, and she's sort of feeling lighter and more confident. And she
Mm.
still hasn't got her NHS appointment yet, but she doesn't need it.
Yes, yes. Well, that's great. That if she can avoid having to go down the surgery route or the injections route or the invasive things, really.
Absolutely. I will work with the NHS as well in the sense that I had a lady recently. She was much older. She came to me with the sort of carpal tunnel, or she thought it was carpal tunnel. I don't think it was,
Mm.
and a lot of aches and pains in her knees and hips. She'd had a hip replacement. She was waiting for a knee replacement. I worked with her for 3 months to get her body moving. She threw away a walking stick after 2 sessions.
Wow.
Uh, and said, I don't need this anymore. And she then went off after 3 months and had her knee replacement. Then we obviously waited for her to recover. Then I got permission from her consultant to recommence treatment.
Mm.
And then we got her in the best possible place before the surgery and then could continue to rehab her after
Mm.
surgery because she had that help around the knee replacement. So I'm not in any way anti-conventional treatment. It's just that it has its limitations, and certainly the way things are currently within the health service, we can certainly help them. It could be a good strategic alliance for us
Yes.
and for the patients.
Yes. And I'm sure doing that kind of work with you means that people recover quicker.
Oh, she did. I mean, she said to me, this lady was 81, and she said, I came in feeling like an old crock, and now I feel like a spring chicken.
Oh, that's lovely. So tell me about the work you do with your sight loss clients, the other side of your business.
Yes, so this is something I developed in the pandemic when, like everybody else, we couldn't
Mhm.
see people face to face. And without sight and without being able to put my hands on people, I felt a little scuppered. So I developed a pandemic pivot, if you will, where I could actually speak to people on the phone or online and put the team together. But my input was very much, my input was actually as a mentor.
Mm.
Because if I couldn't serve people in pain, then as my mentor asked me, who can you serve? And people with sight loss. You don't go through university education, a PhD, getting married, buying a house, running your own business with sight loss without learning a thing or two about A, the challenges, and B, how to get
Mm.
around them. So I've had 3 clients for that now, all of whom were very stuck in their careers or struggling around self-belief, because I think when you have sight loss or any additional challenges for that matter, you're trying to convince the rest of society all the time that yes, you can. You are not just disabled, that you are differently able. And I think if you are surrounded by people who struggle to believe in you, it can be very difficult to maintain that belief in yourself. Because you've got the naysayers, and they mean you no harm. They want to keep you safe, but actually ships are safe in a harbour, but they'd never do any good within the harbour. So, yeah, a lot of issues around self-belief, earning money, and getting them on track. So one lady now has started her own holistic therapy business, and she lost the sight she was already visually impaired, so she made depth perception errors. So she had a freak accident at work that took out one eye, literally took out one eye. And then she had an accident because she misjudged the distance between herself and a table and took out the other eye. And then landed up completely blind. And she just felt that every time she was beginning to get somewhere in life, the rug got pulled out from under. So she had to believe in herself to even start anything again. And she did. And now she's won some awards and some volunteering awards, and she's doing a charity walk. And she's completely different. And then another lady I've been working with is a blind artist. And she wanted to sell her pictures and her paintings. And sometimes I have to be the voice of realism, because I know that it is as damaging for somebody with additional challenges to be told they can do anything as to be told they can't do anything. It's got to be, and I hate the word realistic, but it has got to be achievable. And so she wanted to sell her artwork, and I actually got some opinions on her artwork, and we felt that she could better use her ability, using her art, not to sell it in its own right, but to inspire other people through a public speaking role. So she's now going off to do talks. And using her art as, this is something I love doing. I mean, it's amazing that she can draw in the detail that she can, but at the same time, it'll never be a Rembrandt. And we know that. So it's like, well, what can we do with this? And it's okay, it's not originally what you thought it was going to look like, but what can you do? And now she's looking to build a public speaking career, using the art, maybe giving it to people that she does talks to, as a symbol of, yes, you can achieve against the odds. And if someone's got a piece of artwork that was drawn by someone who's blind, just from her memories of sight before she lost it, I think that could serve as a great inspiration. So that's how she can best use that particular ability. So it's thinking around the problem, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Now, obviously, since the pandemic, we can now go back and meet face to face, and you can go back to doing the client work that you used to do that was very hands-on. But presumably you're going to continue with this other work too now, are you?
Yes, I think so. I certainly have more work in the sort of freedom from pain. But yeah, why not? And something that happened as well, as I was starting to do this work, I was training with a mentor who used to help people with business and employment, and he was training me up to take over from, we've got a mailing list to take over from the work he was doing. And actually, before he'd finished my training, he died of COVID.
Oh no.
He was already poorly, but didn't quite realise how poorly. And so, yeah, she was training me up. And the day I got my first blind client was the day I found out that my supervisor had died. So I was on my own, and a lovely lady in the community just said, don't worry, you don't have to try and replace him. And it's true. I know that I knew from sort of just praying about it, really, that I didn't have to be a replica of him. And indeed, he had some fairly outmoded ideas because he was quite elderly, and some of his ideas didn't work anymore. But I didn't have every skill he had, but I had some that he didn't. And so I didn't need to try and be anyone else but me and be authentic with it.
Yeah. So let's have a little chat now about networking. How do you use networking in your business and the two strands of your business?
Yes, they're quite different, really. My husband's job has moved me around a lot, so it's been kind of, as I was just setting up a business, we would have to up sticks and starting to get some success. And that the first time we had to move, it was a real wrench because I've been in Sheffield 13 years and I had no desire to leave at all. I had friends, I had a church, I was quite happy, thank you very much, apart from with the weather. So when my husband's job took us down to Exeter, which sort of, it barely feels like it's still in civilization by comparison. It's a very tiny, very pretty city with quite small transport links, really not that easy if you can't see Exeter. And so I was suddenly out on a limb, and I was doing stuff on trying to get things out on Facebook, social media, leaflets and things like that, but I wasn't networking. 2 years after we moved, I still felt lonely and I felt new, and I still didn't want to be there any bit as much as I did on day one. I was utterly miserable. And then I went to a networking event for networking, and I was just like, why the heck didn't you do this so much sooner? And I had to learn a few things about gratitude and about just being out there and meeting people and giving over a positive energy, which people would want to hear more than your tale of woe and misery. So I think that was quite an important learning for me in Exeter. And then Matt's job, my husband's job, moved us here to Bracknell near Reading, and I started BNI straight away. I gave myself a couple of weeks to find my way around the house and get to the local shops, and then I was out visiting a BNI. And throughout the pandemic, which hit not so long after I moved here, we stayed in BNI on Zoom for networking. We did a little bit. I stopped doing that in the end. I now do Athena, which is still on Zoom. And I feel like I know someone who does most things around here. And if I don't know the answer, I can find out.
Yeah.
And I've got a business that 2021 was my best year ever. 2022, we're not quite there yet. But 2021 was fantastic, and there's still time. But it's meant that I've never been on my own. And in the pandemic, if I'd taken the same approach to moving to Bracknell as I did to Exeter, I could have been very lonely indeed. And it is about getting out there and people knowing what you do, who you are, who you serve. And that feeds you with positive energy and inspiration as well. The whole social media and everything has its place, but there is no replacement for, like you said, face-to-face human contact. And even with Zoom, I think really now people just want to see each other, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's true. So when it comes to networking, people have all sorts of issues with it, and your dread of going into the room where they don't know people and so on. I imagine for you, there's probably extra challenges, and how do you overcome those?
I think it's just being honest with people beforehand, like, I'm be in the room, I don't know anyone, I will need you to, can you introduce me to people and make sure that they do as well? I mean, in the ideal world, I would take an assistant with me to network, but I can't get someone to come out at 6:30 in the morning. I've tried. They're either they're in bed or they've got kids to get off to school or whatever, so it's actually quite a challenge. So I found it easier just to talk to them beforehand and explain. And now I know about standing up and not just sitting in my seat, but someone actually had to tell me that.
Yes,
Because when you sit down, people think you don't want to talk to anyone. But I didn't know that that's what people were doing. So it took someone who was nice to say, how about we walk around the room together and talk to people? And actually, that'd be good. That'd be good. But if you don't know how it works, but you need to work the room. Everyone's there just like you are to talk about their business. So, if you're afraid of it for yourself, go and ask them about them. People love talking about them.
Absolutely.
Ask them what they do and what brings them here, and then they'll return the favour.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you and I have met very recently at the Best Business Women's Award in London. And so you were nominated in the Inspirational Business Women's Award, and I was nominated in the Best Service Business category. How did you find the event as a networking opportunity?
It was a lovely event. I think, but because it was quite loud and quite busy, I think it was useful that I had reached out to as many people as I could before to actually leverage the networking opportunity, so that I felt like I knew the people in the room. And I couldn't get to speak to everybody, but you and I got to chat.
Yeah.
And a few, I did get to have quite a few one-to-ones. made a few links. So I think if in itself, just as a networking opportunity, it's not what happens in the room. They always say the fortune is in the follow-up, don't they?
Yes,
So
yes.
it's not actually what happens in the big room, crowded room full of busy people, and there was quite loud entertainment, and it was quite actually difficult to speak to people at times. And that was great, but I think it was good because I'd done the work beforehand, and now I've written to all the gold winners, most of whom I haven't managed to speak to yet, to congratulate them. So I've worked quite hard around that event to touch base with the individuals.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, you did quite a lot of preparation beforehand, and you called me, and we had a chat, and you told me to look out for you, and you'd have your bright pink cane with you, which you did, so I knew who you were.
Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously that has led to you being on my podcast today. So that's something that's come out of the networking, isn't it?
Yeah, and I got a press release which somebody kindly sort of tweaked for me. I managed to get an interview on BBC Radio Berkshire, and somebody then phoned and asked if I would do the talk for their local ME support group, which I kind of had assumed was in Berkshire, but actually she used to live in Berkshire. She now lives in Wales.
Oh.
But that then meant I can probably refer those people over to different practitioners. So it's a great opportunity. What's going to come of that yet, I don't entirely know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never know what's going to come of these things, and it is how you leverage it. And I'm starting to learn that because I've won awards before and just didn't. And I thought, oh, they'll bring me the clients, they'll bring me the business, but the awards themselves don't. It's what you do with it.
That's right. Yeah. You have to put the effort in, don't you?
Very much so. But it's a feather in your cap, and you sort of have to be comfortable blowing your trumpet a little bit, really.
Yes, you do. So finally, Sarah, if people are interested in finding out more about your business, about the pain side of it or the sight loss side of it, what's the best way for people to find you?
Give me a ring on 07 949 654 779, or you can drop me an email to hello@drsarahbryan.com. Doctor just being DR, Sarah with an H, and Bryan a BRYAN. So hello@drsarahbryan.com. Or you can go to my website, which is drsarahbryan.com, and all those contact details are there as well.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest, and I hope that we might meet again in the future.
Hopefully so, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.